Hey, welcome back to the lecture. So in this lecture, what we'll do is we will add button support to this application. So our objective is simple. Okay, so whenever I press a button, the LED must toggle. And whenever I leave the button, the toggling of the LED should stop. The output should look something like this. So whenever I press the user button of the Nucleo board, the LEDs should toggle. So when I leave it, it should not toggle. So that's the application we are going to right now. It's so simple. We can create it with no time by taking the help of board support packages. All right, so now let's begin. So first, before thinking about adding button support, we have to check our schematic, right? So where exactly the button is present and how it is connected to microcontroller. So I will do this experiment on my Nucleo board. Let me open the schematic of my Nucleo board. So here it is. So this is the way the button is connected. Okay, so when the button is open, that is when it is not pressed, you can see that this part is isolated, isn't it? Okay, so that means, okay, so the button is actually connected to PC13. Okay, that means GPIO port C, pin number 13. So you can see here, correct? So when you don't press it, actually this PC13 is driven to high. But when you press it, what happens? It will be grounded. So that means when you press it, PC13 reads 0. And when you don't press it, PC13 reads 1. So just remember that. Great. Now come to your project and let's add the board support packages for our button. So let's go to manage runtime environment and let's add buttons. Okay, just select this and click OK. Great, the button is added. Okay, the source file or the board support file for button is added. Great, so now we need this header file, so just copy this header file and paste it in your main.c. Great, so now again go to your board buttons.c and see what are all the function it gives you. So this exposes buttons initialize, buttons uninitialize, button get state, that means read the state of the button, and buttons get count. That's okay. So now what we do is we'll just copy this initialize. So it's a function with no argument. So let's go to main.c and after LED initialization I would like to do, oh, here we have done something wrong. Okay, so I think LED initialize must be outside the while loop. Okay, so I didn't observe this, I'm sorry. Okay, great. So now we'll do button initialize. So I'm sorry, so you just go to buttons and let's copy this. Great, so I'll just format this code. So LED initialize, button initialize. Now, so what I said is whenever I press button, okay, it should glow. Whenever button is pressed, toggle the LEDs. So whenever button is pressed, toggle the LEDs. So how do you do this? How do you implement this logic? If the get state, button get state, if button get state is equal to 1. So before doing this, you have to understand what button get state actually returns. So let's go there and let's see. So this button get state returns 1 when the button is pressed, and it returns 0 when the button is not pressed. Okay, so actually they should have written this in the brief description of this function. Okay, so they have not written it. That's bad actually. That's okay. Now let's not dig into this code implementation because that will cover in later section. Okay, so it is too early to explore about GPIO registers and all, but just know that this button get state returns 1 if the button is pressed, and it returns 0 if button is not pressed. And in that logic we can implement this. So by that information we can implement the logic like, if buttons get state is equal to 1, then button is pressed, isn't it? So then only toggle these LEDs. Okay, so this LED. All right, that's it. So it is in the infinite loop. Fair enough. So what we do now is, let's see whether it compiles or not. Yes, it compiled successfully. Now what we do is we just download this code. Okay, so now I press the reset button, okay, first, and when I press the reset button you can see that the LED is not glowing or toggling. So but now when I press user button you can see that the LED is indeed glowing. So that means our button code is working. Great. So now try this on your development board and let me know if you face any issues. So it's a very straightforward code where we used APIs exposed by the board support packages. So now in the next lecture I would like to cover some debugging tips of your code on the hardware. Great. So I'll see you in the next lecture.